Let us begin tonight with the fight against anti-Semitism. Today is International Holocaust Remembrance Day. We remember this history in part to prevent Jews from being targeted again. That work has a long way to go. Just 2 weeks ago, police responded to a hostage crisis at a synagogue in Colleyville, Texas, that's just outside Fort Worth. This Tuesday, federal prosecutors arrested the man who sold the firearm that was used to kidnap those hostages. Henry Michael Williams faces charges of being a felon in possession of a firearm. The FBI is treating this attack as a terrorist act and a hate crime. Meanwhile, Miami Beach is investigating flyers found on Sunday outside hundreds of homes. Some flyers lay out conspiracy theories about Jews profiting from COVID. Others refer to the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. That's an anti-Semitic publication whose lies inspired Hitler himself. Similar packages were found in Denver and San Francisco. Jews face uniquely high threats in this country. They're only 2% of the U.S. population, but recent FBI figures show more than half of all religious bias crimes targeted Jews, more than half. According to the American Jewish Committee, nearly 1 in 4 American Jews say they faced anti-Semitism over the past year. Today serves as a reminder of what can happen if this kind of hatred takes root. On this date in 1945, soldiers liberated the Nazi concentration camp of Auschwitz-Birkenau. Today, commemorations took place in person and online. The UN Secretary General drew a parallel between the Holocaust and the crimes we're seeing today.
The phrase "never again" rings hollow unless we use the past to take the measure of our own time. What we see today must worry us and jolt us into action. A resurgence of Holocaust denial, attempts to rewrite history, efforts to whitewash and rehabilitate people who committed crimes against humanity. Meanwhile, survey after survey shows increasing ignorance among young people about basic facts of the Holocaust. Anti-Semitic attacks, both verbal and physical, have increased during the pandemic despite lockdowns and quarantines.
Let's begin tonight with Holly Huffnangle. She's the U.S. Director for Combating Anti-Semitism at the American Jewish Committee. Ms. Huffnangle, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
How do you see the fight against anti-Semitism today? Are we, generally speaking, making forward progress? Are we moving back? I'm sure it's a mix of both, but generally speaking, how are we doing?
It is a mix of both. I work on combating anti-Semitism every day. Unfortunately, in the past 5 years, anti-Semitism in our country has increased. We have FBI data to corroborate this. American Jewish Committee has actually done a study on American Jews and their experiences with and perceptions of anti-Semitism. And we can look to the incidents that have happened in the last few years, from what happened in Pittsburgh, Poway, Jersey City, most recently in Colleyville, to show us that anti-Semitism is increasing. And so that part's not good. But the part that is good is we're raising awareness. We're making more people aware of what anti-Semitism is, how to call it out, giving resources to law enforcement to better protect the Jewish community. Congress is working toward passing legislation to better fund hate crimes reporting. So there is some hope in this fight as well.
We mentioned that statistic earlier where nearly 1 in 4 American Jews say they experienced anti-Semitism over the past year. Also, 39% of American Jews say they've changed their behavior over the past 12 months to avoid anti-Semitism. Can you drill down into that statistic for me a bit? What do those behavioral changes look like?
Absolutely. So what that 39% number means, it's about 3 behaviors we asked about. So 17% have actually avoided going to the Jewish institutions or, going to some place that, they might be associated with being Jewish. 22% have actually avoided wearing things that might identify them as Jewish, such as a kippah on their head or a Star of David necklace. And, almost 25%, 1 in 4 American Jews have avoided posting content online that would identify them as Jewish. And so some people have chosen more than one of these things in the last year. That's where we get that 4 in 10 number have changed behavior out of fear of anti-Semitism. The one thing that's really important to note is that number jumps to 52% for young American Jews. Over half of young American Jews between the ages of 18 and 29 have had these behavioral changes. And that's the future generation. And so that's a little more frightening.
I wonder what you think is behind all of this. I mean, it seems like some of these incidents are people who are deeply motivated by real, virulent anti-Semitism. Some of them seem to be motivated, depending on the situation, the circumstances, and who's involved, by people who are just trying to be provocative. You know, they know that, like, scrawling a swastika somewhere will get a rise out of people, and so they do it just to be jerks, really, to be terrible. How do we get at what's underneath this? The events that are more hooliganism and rudeness and stupidity versus the ones that pose like a real, tangible physical threat?
Obviously, the ones that pose a real, tangible, physical threat, need to be confronted with immediacy, need to be called out. We need to protect and save Jewish life. But at the same time, we can't dismiss the swastika in the bathroom. Americans need to know that that's also not okay. There's no room for this kind of hatred and vitriol in our society. Might start with that swastika on the bathroom, or a comment online, or a flyer, on someone's driveway, can lead to real life harm against Jews. And so we really do need to call it out, no matter its source.
In a way, I feel like, you look at things like the flyers we just showed, the one that Miami Beach's Mayor Dan Gelber tweeted out, that has a list of people that it says are all part of some Jewish conspiracy to profit from COVID. I mean, even things like that, which, by the way, it lists Javier Becerra, who's the Secretary of Health and Human Services. He's Roman Catholic. But even things like that seem to almost be more insidious, because they kind of create this environment where the steady drip of all these images and messages can kind of take root in someone's mind and then metastasize into something worse. What do we do about something like this? Other than the law enforcement investigations, what do you think is our strongest offense against anti-Semitism these days?
I actually think the strongest offense is going to be civil society. I mean, our government needs to do its part. There are leaders, law enforcement needs to do their part, but civil society needs to, kind of rise up and say, there's no place for this kind of hatred, in our country. And usually the reason why anti-Semitism is rising, it's usually a sign of, something else is wrong, whether it be our eroding of our democracy, the deep polarization, the politicization in our country. And so having civil society, come up and come forth and call this out, push those anti-Semites to the fringes, under the rocks, where they belong. That's what we need.
And for those people who, may be willing to help, but, I'm sure there are plenty of people watching right now who say, yeah, if I saw something, heard something, encountered something, I'd speak up immediately. Absent that, I don't know what to do. Is there anything proactive that you would like for people to do more of, do less of, do differently to try to reduce anti-Semitism before we go?
So anti-Semitism is actually not a Jewish problem. It shouldn't be up to the hated to fight the hate, or the victim to fight the crime. So it's really up to non-Jews, to all of us to be part of this. An important place to start is ajc.org. That stands for American Jewish Committee, ajc.org. We have resources on how to get involved, what to do. But when you see something, say something, report anti-Semitism, listen to the needs of the Jewish community. Where can you help engage in your local efforts? And I think that's where it will start.
I really appreciate what you said in terms of the way forward, that anti-Semitism is not a Jewish problem. It's everyone else's problem. We're the ones who need to create the environment where anti-Semitism cannot thrive. I will hang on to that. Holly Huffnangle from the American Jewish Committee, I really appreciate you making time. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.